in prosecuting that case, their main narrative was that Jeffrey Epstein was the mastermind, and Stephen Hoffenberg confirmed this in his testimony to the grand jury. But then in a few months' time, Jeffrey Epstein's name is dropped from the case. And in 1993, Jeffrey Epstein is, instead of in prison like Steve Hoffenberg is, he's visiting the White House. And that may be related to why, his name was dropped from the case, because he became intimately involved in fundraisers. And one of the fundraisers he was first involved in, at least that we know about, in 1993, was related to a fundraiser for the White House Historical Association. And so the White House Historical Association fundraiser was supposed to be, led by the First Lady's office, Hillary Clinton, and her decorator, Kaki Hawker-Smith. And reference to this particular fundraiser turns up in Vince Foster's quote-unquote suicide note.
What did he say in that suicide note?
So first of all, some background about the suicide note. It's very unlikely that Vince Foster committed suicide, first of all, but it's even more unlikely that the suicide note was actually his suicide note, because when his office was searched by police, when his body was discovered, there was nothing in his briefcase. It was completely empty. And then around 36 hours later, the First Lady's office announced that a suicide note had been found in his briefcase that had previously been seen empty, right? So the speculation as a result of that has been Hillary Clinton, or at least people around her, were responsible for the creation of the suicide note and wanted it out there for specific purposes, ostensibly to exonerate Hillary and the First Lady's office from any sort of potential wrongdoing, in this broader sphere of ongoings at the time Vince Foster died. And the only reference to Hillary Clinton in that quote unquote suicide note is related to this fundraiser, and how there was nothing funny about the money involved. And of course, as White House legal counsel at the time of his death, Vince Foster would have been responsible for determining if there was anything suspect about the finances of that particular fundraiser. And if you look at some of the names associated with this fundraiser, you don't just have Jeffrey Epstein, you have people like Clark Clifford, who, for example, was instrumental in having BCCI establish itself in the United States, with BCCI being the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, which is one of these organizations I sort of alluded to earlier that is, essentially masquerading as a bank, but is really a private intelligence apparatus that's sex trafficking minors, among other things, but involved in money laundering on a massive scale and all other sorts of just really insane and brazen financial crimes that were investigated by Congress, and sort of collapsed spectacularly in 1991. So, you have Clark Clifford, one of the masterminds of that there. You have Jeffrey Epstein, mastermind of this massive Ponzi scheme there. And then you have a banker that's affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in the Palm Beach area, who's very much established in the offshore financial system of the Caribbean. So, you put all of that together, it seems very likely that there was some sort of funny money there. And did it play a role in Vince Foster's death? I don't really know, but it's very interesting that you would have one of the earliest involvements of Jeffrey Epstein with the Clintons being mentioned in that particular quote unquote suicide note.
Yeah. How are you involved in a massive Ponzi scheme and then you just walk away and your name, you're just cleared from it?
Yeah, and why is Hillary Clinton going to these types of bankers to finance something that's ostensibly her just changing curtains at the White House? A lot of it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So